Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes, from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tennesha Wood. Hey guys! I am so excited about tonight's episode because I have so many new things to share with you guys. So for the last 6 months, my life has been completely crazy. And I'm going to tell you guys all about it. So we have to really rewind for this. It's story time. Get your wine, get your coffee, wherever you're at right now, and sit down because it's story time. So I have to rewind back to January. So in January, Chris decided that he was going to move his business to Puerto Rico. And I thought it was a great idea. It's something that he'd been talking about for a while. There's certain advantages to that in his business. So something he'd been researching and talking about, and finally decided that 2019 was going to be the year that he did it. So around that same time, I actually got a job offer in Dallas to do sales and business development, which is something that I've done in the past, but didn't really love, to be honest. But I thought, great, this will give me a chance to stack some money, because for the last 2.5 years, I've basically been doing my own thing with dating coaching and the podcast. And if you know anything about entrepreneurship life, sometimes you're up and things are amazing and you have a lot of clients and you're getting sponsorships and things are great. And then sometimes it's like, oh my God, I need to get on it. So in any case, I thought this will be a good move for me to stack some money and then live my life, my best entrepreneurship life. So took the job. Again, sales is not something I love. It's something I'm good at, and I've been doing it for a while, but definitely not something I love. For the last 2.5 years, I was doing exactly what I wanted to do, but I thought, great way to set yourself up. Anyway, so by February, Chris is in Puerto Rico, I'm in Dallas, and things are okay. Just okay. I obviously didn't love being away from him, but once I started the job, I was like, oh my God, what have I done? I did not like it at all. The first day that I was in training, I sat in the room and I looked around and I thought, oh my God, I'm in the wrong room. And that's not because, I was the only Black woman, which was the case, but that's not why I say that I was in the wrong room. I just knew that my passions and who I was and what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be didn't align with the room that I was in. And I figured that out immediately. But I'm also the type of person that hates, not delivering on a commitment, whether that be to myself or to other people. And I had committed to doing a year, and I thought, I'll just get through it. I'll just do this year and that'll be that. I'll go to Puerto Rico and then that'll be it. So I went in every day. And this was, by the way, the first time that I'd ever worked in an office. So prior to that, the most I'd worked in an office was for 6 or 7 months. But other than that, even when I did work in sales, I'd always worked from home. So there was a lot of flexibility there. It was a lot of getting to live my own life. I just happened to work for somebody else. But this was just a very different structure for me, where I literally was in an office all day, every day, from 7 to 4:30, and I felt the life literally being sucked out of me and just drained. There were days where all I could hear was the clicking of keyboards. Like I could hear nothing else except the clicking of keyboards. And I think it was starting to drive me absolutely crazy. But I was like, again, I made a commitment. You got to stick through it. Okay, done. So a couple months goes by and I'm not happy with the fact that I'm away from people I love. 2, I'm not really taking to the city. Like I wasn't taking to Dallas like I had taken to other cities. And it wasn't anything to do directly with Dallas. Like there was nothing wrong with Dallas as a city, but I just think my mindset was so different than when I had moved to previous places. So I've lived in several different cities and obviously traveled to several different cities. And I just had a different attitude about it. Like generally when I'm in somewhere new, I'm like, let me meet some people. Let me figure out where I like to eat, get my nails done, do my hair, do this, do that. And I didn't do any of that. I was like, okay, here's Target and here's my job and here's my bed. And those were literally the 3 things that I did all the time. I spent so much time at Target. I even had a favorite checkout lady at Target. It was this older Black woman named Irma who was just the sweetest person on earth and like made my day. Also, I had a really great masseuse there who was just amazing. And I looked forward to going to her every Friday. But I say all that to say, I felt like I had very little there. And that was probably some of my own fault, but it just wasn't for me. And I knew that pretty immediately. So I didn't really start building a life there in any sort of way. And just slowly, it was really weighing on me, like to the point where Sundays were the worst day on earth for me. Like I would get up on a Sunday morning and I would be like, crap, tomorrow's Monday and I have to do this whole thing over again. And so Sundays were just not even enjoyable because all I could think about was the fact that Monday was happening and just not happy. I was really just not a happy camper. And I think the very few people that I was around probably saw that in some way. And I think it definitely had an effect on, you know, my relationship at the time. And just, I think it just put a strain on everything in my life because I was so unhappy. So anyway, one weekend, my brother comes to town. My little brother, Travis, is 10 years younger than me and about 50 years wiser. He's just very smart, very in touch, very in tune, and has seen me in every stage of my life. I mean, minus the 10 years before he got here. So he came to visit one weekend and he just basically said, this is not you. Like you're acting a little off, a little loopy. Like this is, if you're really just not happy, you need to leave. And I said, you know what? You're right. I do. Like there's no point in me trying to do something that absolutely makes me happy in no way. There was nothing about it that made me happy except money, which brings me to a lesson. If you are just doing something for money, like that's your only purpose, that's your only reason, I promise you this, it just will never work. So just whatever you're doing, if it's just for the purpose of money, you might as well quit now because it just won't work out. Like that's just not a motivation and a reason to do something. It just won't work. So anyway, my brother comes down to visit and he tells me, you know, this is just not you. And like, you can't do this. Like you just can't go through with this and be this unhappy. And I said, you know what? You're right. I know this lesson. I know corporate America and sales is just not for me. I've been there before, but I thought I could do this temporarily for a year. So anyway, he leaves town. And after he left town, I was like, he's absolutely right. Like, this is not for me. What am I doing with my life? I can't do this. So then I was having a conversation with my mom and she said, the thing about life is that 1 year of unhappiness takes 3 years off your life. And after she told me that, I was like, mind blown. And she's absolutely right. 1 year of unhappiness can do so much to the rest of my life that I might not even know. So like, I can't afford to be unhappy for a year. So then like I said, my brother was in town that weekend. He left like that Tuesday. By that Thursday, I was talking to my manager and letting him know that this was not for me and that I'd probably made the wrong decision in coming there. and that I was going to be leaving. So then by that Friday, I was out. And then that next week, I was in Puerto Rico and, packed up all my stuff like in a weekend. Like I was on it. I was so quick, like had a very miniature going away dinner for the very few people that I actually made connections with while I was there. And then, packed up all my stuff that weekend and then was out by like that Monday or Tuesday to Puerto Rico. Now get this. So I get to Puerto Rico. This is where Chris is living. And then I get an email from this fellowship that I had applied for months earlier and hadn't even thought about. And this was a fellowship, a podcast fellowship in New York City that I had applied for before I even left New York. So applied for the fellowship. I found out right after I got to Puerto Rico that I got it. So then I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be in New York for the summer. So here I am now, moved back to New York for the summer at least, to do this fellowship, which I really wanted because it was in line with everything that I'm trying to do and everything that I want to learn and everything that I feel like I need to grow to actually do the things I want to do. And this whole thing taught me so much about following your vision and your heart and not money. So anytime in life ever that I've actually just followed my heart, it's never steered me wrong. When I've followed money, it's steered me wrong. I've always heard the saying, do what you love and the money will follow. Do what you love and the money will follow. But sometimes when you're in the middle and the midst of building your own thing, like it gets rough, it gets tough, it gets hard, and it can be really tempting to do something else just for money. But if your heart's not in it, it won't work anyway. So just save yourself the time and build on your own thing and your own dream and do that. My biggest lesson about this came from when I had just moved to New York. So I'm not sure if I've ever told you guys this story, but when I moved to New York, it was completely following my heart. Like I had no plan. I had no goals. I was just like, something in my heart tells me that I need to be in New York. Let's rewind back to like 2012. I was living in the Bay and I was dating this guy who's been on this podcast, my ex, John. Hey, John. I was dating John. I was working for a company doing sales, and this was like the first time I really realized, like, I just don't want to do this. Like what I'm doing, there's so much more that I should be doing. I don't know what else I want to do, but I just know I don't want to do this. And I know that I don't want to be here. At the time I was living in San Francisco and I'd been there for almost 3 years, but I was getting to that point where I was just ready to go somewhere else and do something else. I can get very antsy. So I was in San Francisco. This was like August of 2012. I had lunch with my friend Nubia, and she was getting ready to go to grad school at NYU. And like, I was just in such awe of her in the moment because she was just like, yeah, I just like hated my job. And I was like, screw it, I'm going to do something else. And she applied to grad school, got in, and she was so excited. And when she was saying this, I just was like, there's just always been something that's told me that I need to live in New York. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was just watching episodes of Sex and the City when I was younger, but I'd always felt like that's somewhere I should be. So at the time, I was in a job that I didn't love, and I don't know what exactly in my mind told me to do this, but within like the next week, I decided I was quitting my job and moving to New York. So the guy I was dating at the time was also moving to New York, but this wasn't necessarily because of him. It was just something I'd always wanted to do, and everything in my universe just kept saying New York, New York, New York, New York, including him, including my friend Nubia. So I put in my notice for my job with no plan. Like I had no job in New York. I had no plan in New York. I didn't know really. I've been to New York before, but I just knew I had to be there and I didn't know why. So I quit my job, put my notice in, and then I was like selling my stuff. I was setting up movers. Like I was ready to have this whole thing move forward. And so when I put in my 2 weeks notice at my job, the VP at the time called me personally and he said, "Hey, I heard that you're leaving. Why are you leaving?" And I told him, I said, I just really need to be in New York. I can't necessarily explain it to you, but that's just like where I need to be. And of course he said, "Is it a money thing? Do you not like your manager?" Kind of went over all the typical reasons one might leave a job. And in all honesty, it wasn't any of those things. Like I knew the job wasn't for me, but there wasn't anything the company could do to make that job for me. I just felt like I need to be in New York. So then he's like, "Don't do anything. Like, don't move yet. Hold on, and I'll call you back in a couple days." And so at this point, again, I'm still giving away my things, packing up, movers are coming. And he calls me back the next day and he says, "Hey, I was able to find something in Boston." And I said, "Well, Boston isn't New York, but I appreciate you trying." And so he said, "Okay, don't do anything. Don't move yet." And I'm like, "Okay." Now, remember, I actually didn't even say this part, but I had movers scheduled to come like the end of that week. So he keeps telling me like, "Don't make any big moves. I'm working on this." And I'm like, "Okay, you could do whatever you want to do, but like I got people coming at the end of the week." So he calls me back the next day and he says, "Okay, I found you a position with a company in New York and you just have to interview for it with the hiring manager." And I was like, "Oh my God, really?" Remember, I had no plan when I was going to New York. I just knew that that's where I needed to be. I interviewed for that position, got it. And then also within that, got a raise from my old position. So here I was following my heart, which told me you need to be in New York. I didn't know why. I didn't know how. I didn't have a plan, but I just felt like that's where I needed to be. So moved to New York. It's great. I love it. And then I stayed for 7 years, right? And then I got to the point in New York where I was like, okay, I feel like I've done New York. It's time for something new. This whole Dallas/Puerto Rico thing came up. And then as soon as I got to Dallas, I was like, no. What have I done? And so, that brings us to currently where we are today. So I moved to Puerto Rico, got this fellowship in New York. So I'm back in New York for the summer and then back and forth to Puerto Rico. So I'm sort of living in several different places right now based on where my things are. So I have things in New York, things in Dallas, things in Puerto Rico. And I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with not feeling settled. Like right now, I've pretty much been living out of a suitcase in terms of where I am, like I'm living somewhere very temporary in New York because we'd given up our apartment before I left. In Puerto Rico, I'm not fully settled there because I've been in New York. When I left Dallas, it was all very quickly. So I have things in Dallas. So I'm a little bit all over the place right now. But it's okay because I'm happy and I feel like I'm following my heart. And to be honest, I'm at that same point that I was when I was leaving California, where I didn't necessarily have a plan and I don't necessarily know what's next. Like I didn't have some grand plan when I left my job. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going to move to Puerto Rico and do X, Y, and Z and be this and be that. I was just like, I'm just following my heart. And my heart says this is where I want to be right now. And then I got this fellowship in New York. And again, I'm just following my heart. And my heart is like, you need to do this fellowship. And I've felt really good about all of it. And right now I'm just at the point where I'm soaking everything in and I'm really loving it. Like, I don't know, there's this sort of shame I think that people have when you get to be a certain age, i.e. like me, I'm 35. And it feels like you should have a plan for everything. Like it feels like when somebody says, do you want kids? You should be like, yes, I want 2.5 kids. I want a boy. I'm going to name him Billy. I want a girl. I'm going to name her Anna. We're going to live in this suburb. We're going to We're going to blah, 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 blah. And like, I actually have no plans right now. Like every day I'm just trying to live to be as happy as I can for that day. And I feel good about that. For the first time, I think I'm completely back in that zone that I was in when I decided that I was leaving California, where I don't have to have a plan for everything. I could just live. I could just be. And so that's where I'm at right now, guys. Like I'm partly living in New York, partly living in Puerto Rico, but mostly happy, mostly just trying to enjoy every day and take it in for all that it is. And I'll see what comes about. And I think that when you're happy, so much more can come about. Like your heart is so much more open. Your mind is so much more open, and opportunities are going to come your way that you didn't see and didn't even think of, simply because you're just living in your happiness. And I think that's what we're meant to do. So I encourage all of you to figure out what it is that makes your heart happy and follow that, even if sometimes it doesn't seem logical. Like it's never seemed logical for me to leave a 6-figure plus job to do me, right? But it's made me so much happier. Now, granted, I have a lot less money, but I'm so much happier, and I feel like my ideas and my thoughts can flourish. And I just want to encourage everybody that you could like do that. Like you could change your life. If you're not happy today, like you can change that tomorrow. No, I am not saying walk into your job and quit it with no plans if you got a mortgage and 5 mouths to feed, right? I will admit that part of the reason I did have so much flexibility is because it is like just me in a way. Like I don't have, children to take care of. I didn't have a mortgage. So sometimes for me, it's as easy as subletting my apartment and using more of my savings than I want to. So I do have that privilege, and I'm very happy for that. But whatever is in your power to do to make yourself as happy as you can, please do that thing. Like, please do that thing. Because when you're not happy, you can't create and you can't thrive. So right now, I'm just doing me, and I'm really happy for that. So that's the big update. I'm living out of a suitcase in several different places, but I'm happy. So the other thing that I wanted to do tonight is some listener questions. They've been piling up, so I just picked a couple of the best ones. Sorry if yours isn't getting read today, but these are a couple of the ones that I really liked or connected to. So let's do some listener questions. Okay, first question. I recently broke up with my boyfriend after uncovering several ongoing lies. He was extremely intelligent, so whenever I questioned his lies, he had a solid explanation, but I never really trusted him after the first lie. After catching him in several more lies, I knew that breaking up with him was the right thing to do. But the fact that I chose a man like that in the first place has given me a lot of doubt in my ability to pick the right kinds of men. I always believed that I had a good picker and was good at picking the right kind of man. And somehow I had avoided situations like this most of my life. I am now closed off to the idea of dating again until I can figure out why I attracted a man like that. What am I missing here? That was from Kara. So, pickers. I feel like some people have a bad picker. Like I feel like there are some people who pick out the worst man or woman in the room because there's something about the drama and the chaos that they seem to be attracted to. So they keep attracting those types of people because that's the energy they're giving off is, I like the drama, I like the chaos. So of course, that's what flows to them is those types of people. However, in Kara's case, it doesn't sound like she's had that issue all her life of just attracting these sorts of people. So I think it sounds like it's not so much that her picker is off, but she just got into a bad situation. But Kara, let me tell you what I appreciate about your letter. You're taking responsibility for any role that you might have had, because a lot of the times people say, this person is a horrible person and they came into my life and did X, Y, and Z. And though that might be true, we also do have to take on responsibility for our part in it. So what is your part in dealing with a liar? Well, were there signs that you missed because you didn't want to see them? I think that whatever causes a breakup generally, it wasn't the first time that thing happened, that catalyst took place. So, she said that he's lied before, but he's always had solid explanations. But what was going on with you, Kara, during the time that he was lying? Even though he had good explanations, you knew that there was something up. Why did you choose to ignore those? Was it that you were just so in love that, you were explaining things away for him? Well, I mean, he wouldn't really lie about that because, he loves me and I love him and blah, blah, blah. Like, what were you feeling at the time? Were you going through things where you weren't feeling your best and you were willing to accept something that you knew wasn't good for you? So I think the question is not so much what's wrong with your picker, but really thinking about where you were at during those points and what was happening with you that you allowed something that you knew wasn't right. So there was lies before. What exactly was happening with you at that point? Because you knew, you're a smart woman. You said your picker has not led you astray before, but it did this time. So just really understanding what about this particular person and this particular situation had you somewhat blinded by some of the things that he was saying. Here's the thing, that we don't realize. No matter how smart we are, no matter how great our picker is, when our love filter is on, it's so hard to see the most basic stuff. This is why I like to introduce partners to my family right away, because I know that when I'm falling in love and I just love a person, I can look past things. I can ignore things and I might see them, but I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. Whereas your family doesn't have that love filter and those love goggles on, so they could just see stuff for what it is, or your close friends. So I encourage you to have your friends and your family meet people that you're interested in or in love with pretty early on, because again, they can spot things that you can't necessarily spot. And also, you have to be aware of the signs, right? Little lies, even when they seem insignificant. If somebody's like, did you watch the rest of Game of Thrones without me? And then your partner is like, oh no, not at all. I was waiting for you. And it's a dumb, insignificant about TV lie, but it might be more. There might be more to that. Why did that person lie about something so insignificant? So just be aware of where you were at the time, mentally and emotionally, and why you let some of those things go. And also be aware that when you see little signs, you shouldn't ignore them because they might be bigger things. So just don't let your love goggles do the filtering for you. Phone a friend if needed to help you with the filtering. But Kara, I wouldn't beat yourself up too much about the fact that you attracted a man like this. It really does sound like it might have been a one-off for you, and don't beat yourself up about it. If you need closure from him, that's fine. You can ask for that. You can ask questions. You can ask why he did some of the things he did, but I wouldn't let this weigh on you. I wouldn't let it take over how you see yourself and your ability to choose the right types of men. So let it go. It was a mistake. And move on after you understand that mistake. And it's not about you. Some people lie, and that's just that. So I hope that helps. Okay, next question. This is from Big Mike. It says, I met a woman at work. She was always flirting with me and making small talk, so I asked her out. After the first time we hung out, I invited her back to my house for a drink. We were drinking and watching TV and having a good time. At least that's what I thought. I tried to kiss her and then she pulled back. At the end of the night, I tried it again and got the same response. I left it alone because I figured she was not interested. So I avoided her at work, but she continued to come to my desk and flirt with me. One night, we went out to a work happy hour. Afterwards, I invited her to my house and she came over. Again, the vibe was great and we were both having a good time. I reached over to kiss her and she pulled away again. I'm very confused. Is she into me? If not, why does she continue to flirt with me and hang out with me, but act standoffish at the same time? So I'm a little disturbed by the question because there's some misogyny laced in this that I don't think, Big Mike, you even realize is happening. So first of all, you don't actually have the right to put your hands on or kiss anybody. Like, that's just not a right because a person is in your home or flirting with you. Like, that doesn't automatically grant you that. And if you thought that she was uncomfortable when you did it the first time, why try it a second time and then a third? Why not say to her after the first time, hey, I noticed that when I tried to kiss you, you pulled back from me. Are you okay? Is that something that was okay with you? Is that something that you want? What was happening in your head at that moment? The answer isn't to then do it again to see the reaction. The answer is really, oh, my bad. I saw that something that I just did made you uncomfortable because that's how you physically reacted. Why are you reacting like that? What can I do? Yeah, I just don't like that there's this thing where we feel like because a person is in our home, that automatically means that, like, oh yeah, they want something to go down. Maybe, maybe not. Also, maybe the reason that she continues to hang out with you is that she actually just likes you as a friend and as a person and wants to hang out with you and have a good time, but you keep trying stuff and then it's making her uncomfortable. Like, there is a gray area. There is a middle ground. It's not just we're nothing or you want to be with me. Like, she might actually just like you as a friend, and that's why she continues to hang out with you. And I would even question the term flirting. You know, obviously I'm not there, so I can't see how she's flirting. But if she were a man and she was saying all the same things, would you still consider it flirting? I mean, if a man comes up to your desk every day at work and says, hey, like, what did you think of what season of sport are we in right now? I think we're in baseball. Yeah. What did you think of the Yankees game the other day against the Blue Jays? There is a Blue Jays team, right? Like, you wouldn't necessarily consider that flirting. You would just consider that somebody who likes you or finds you interesting having a conversation or making small talk with you. So I don't know that her flirting is even flirting. Like, what is she saying? Like, is she truly just saying normal things to you, and because you like her or attracted to her, you're taking it as flirting? So here's what I would do, Big Mike. First of all, I would apologize. I would, in a public space, ask her to coffee, something in the day, and I would be like, hey, I apologize for the last few times that, you know, we've hung out and I've tried to come at you that way and kiss you. And, you know, you clearly felt a certain way about it because you pulled back and recoiled. Can I ask why? Is that something that makes you uncomfortable? Do you just not want something like that with me? Why exactly are you doing that and what's making you uncomfortable? But don't assume that just because she's hanging out with you or at your house that she wants anything more than a friendship with you, or that anything that she's saying to you is anything flirtatious, because it could be just her normal mode of being friendly with people. But because maybe you're a man and she's a woman and you're at the same point or age in life, then you feel like there has to be more here. There might not be. She might just think you're a cool person, and you might be ruining that by constantly trying to come on to her. So I would talk to her and figure out exactly why she's reacting the way that she's acting and exactly what she wants from you. So try that out, Big Mike. Don't assume that everybody wants you. I mean, I think we've all been guilty of that, though, in some ways. Like, I've been walking down the street before and felt like a guy was trying to talk to me. And then I do I'm sorry, I have a boyfriend. And it's like, no, I just was letting you know you dropped something, So it's like we all have this sort of, when it happens so many times, we have this complex that, well, the reason that person is talking to me is because they must want me. And it's like, no, sometimes like people are either just being friendly, being nice, or letting you know you dropped something out of your bag. So kind of get off the high horse a little bit and figure out exactly who people are and what they want. Okay, last question. How do you handle a cheap man? I met a dude on Bumble. He asked me out on a date. I emphasized me because she put it in all caps. We went to dinner, and when the check came, he left it sitting there forever. I eventually put my card down and then asked him if he was going to do the same. So then he put his down. I wasn't expecting to pay since he asked me out, but okay, whatever. 3 days later, he asked me out again. We went to a movie. He arrived before me and only bought his ticket. So at that point, I was mad I even showed up. After the movie, we went to a bar. I ordered 2 glasses of wine and some calamari, which he ate half of. He just ordered a beer. When the bill came, he put down cash, but only for the amount of his beer. The thing is, I actually like him except for this cheap behavior. Should I drop him or talk to him about it? It's just so awkward to bring this kind of stuff up. And this one was sent from Anna. So, yeah, I agree. It's really awkward to talk about money, especially when you don't know somebody that well, when you've been out with them twice. But if it's something that's important to you, you should definitely bring it up. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that every time I go out on a date, a man has to pay. But for me personally, I'm super old-fashioned in that way. And like, if you ask me out, I do kind of expect you to pay. I just do. I'm sorry. It's just the way that I think. I believe in chivalry. And I don't know. I don't like that. Like, I'd prefer that you take me out to a picnic or something random or whatever it is that is within your budget, but don't ask me out and then not treat me. I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. It's just the kind of guy I don't like. I don't like cheap people. Like, I don't like cheap people in general. Like, people that are always so like concerned with every dollar. So like the whole thing where they went out after the movie and he just paid for his beer. Like, what kind of crap is that? I'd be so annoyed. I'm annoyed if I go out with friends, just regular girlfriends, and they're like, well, I got and you got and then I got like, I don't like that. Like, I just understand that there's like a cost to leaving your house. Like, once you leave your house, you're just going to pay a certain amount of money. You might as well just not be tit for tat about it. And so I don't like people like that in general. I don't like friends like that. Like, I definitely don't like dates like that. So this would really rub me the wrong way. And this would make me not like a person based on this. Cause I'm just like, I don't like stingy people. And to me, people that focus on money that much, where it's like, you got this, I got that. They have a scarcity mindset about money, and then they're never going to actually have any money anyway. And I just don't like that sort of mindset, particularly on a man. It's such a turnoff to me. Like, it's just like, bleh. Whenever I go out with a guy and he asks me out, particularly on a first date, and he doesn't pay, in my mind, I think things like, well, who do you think I am? Like, do you think that I'm just out here on a date with you because I needed a free meal? Like, I'm better than that. Like, you come out on a date with me because you want to be on a date with a good woman and you know how to treat a woman. So you would have paid if you even thought about how to treat me right because I'm a good woman. Like, that's just how I get. But yeah, I do believe that. Like, I do believe if somebody asks me out on a date, particularly the first one, they should pay. So I completely understand why this is annoying and upsetting to you. And look, if you really like this guy, I think that you should say something. Understand though, look, I think cheap is ingrained. Like, I think cheap is one of those things that are just in you, and I'm not going to try to get it out of you. I'd probably just move on if that's a real issue for you. For me, that's a real issue. I don't like cheap, stingy people. Like, I cannot get along with people like that. We do not vibe. So if it's not that big of a problem for you, and you really like this guy, I would talk to him about it. I would say, look, just so you know, when I take people out, I really take them out. I like them to have a really good time. I like them to eat, drink, be merry, whatever. And I just felt like when you took me out, you didn't really take me out. And so I'd like to be taken on a proper date. Like that's just what I like. I believe in chivalry. Like, people get embarrassed nowadays to say what they really want. Like, I'm sorry, but it's okay if you believe a man should still pay on a first date. It's 100% okay. We've gotten into this like idea now that it's like, well, everything is 50-50. We can never say like, oh, a woman should like cooking and like staying home. And we can never say like, oh, a man should like paying for his woman. Like, I'm sorry, I don't believe in that. Like, do whatever makes you happy. If you are happy saying, yo, we split everything down the middle 50-50, great. Express that, share that, and do that. If you are happy saying, I never want a man to tell me I need to be at home cooking and cleaning, great. Don't date that man that would ever think like that. But it's still okay to like whatever you like. Like, don't think that just because we're moving forward as a society and rules are changing and ideas are changing, that doesn't mean you can't still like what you like. So I say all that to say, if you ever take me out on a first date and you ask me out and you don't pay, I'm going to look at you a certain type of way. And then I will tell you about yourself. So one time I went on a date with this guy, and he was a friend of a girl who came on this show. And he was a really cool guy. We had a good date, I thought. And then when the bill came, he didn't pay. And in my mind, I was like, nope, not for me. And so I was about to ghost him. I would never ghost anybody anymore. As you guys know, that was back in like my late 20s where I would ghost people. I do not do that anymore. It's very rude. Don't ghost people. So anyway, I just didn't really answer his calls. And then he contacted the friend who had set us up and was like, hey, like she hasn't really answered my calls. Like, what's up? So then she calls me and I was like, yeah, I just really don't want to go out with him again. When we went out, like he asked me out and he didn't pay and I just didn't like that. And so because he was a friend of a friend, I called him back and then I was straight up and I said, I'm sorry, I think you're a really nice guy. I enjoyed our date, but like a guy who doesn't feel like I'm good enough or worthy enough to be treated to a meal is not really a guy for me. And he said, oh, like I didn't see it like that at all. He said, I was in a relationship prior to this where we just split everything down the middle all the time, 50-50. And I just thought that would be okay. He's like, we even made like a fun game out of it where, we would Venmo each other exact amounts. Like if the bill was, $26.14, then I would Venmo $13.07 exactly. And I was like, yeah, that's not funny to me. Like, that would really annoy me and make me think that people are petty and cheap, and I don't really deal with petty or cheap people. So like, yeah, that's not a fun game for me, and I don't like to play that. So long story short, me and that guy never went out again. Because yeah, I'd be annoyed if you Venmo'd me an exact amount. But I understood what he was saying and where he was coming from. He basically had come from a relationship where like that's how they did it. So he just generally flowed into the next thing thinking, well, this is how the next woman might want it, which is really not the case. So I just think like once that happens, if you actually like somebody, just be upfront and say, this is how I like to be treated. I like to be treated. That's how I like to be treated. So yeah, I hope that he is open to that conversation, but I gotta be honest, like just cheap people are cheap people. Like I think that's one of those things that can't really change. Like I think that's really ingrained in people when they're just like cheap like that and like have to count every penny. And like, I just don't like people like that. I'm sorry if you're a cheap person, but stop being like that. Like the thing about money is that when you act in a scarcity mindset and you treat money in a scarcity mindset, it's always going to be scarce. So if you're counting every single penny, you're only going to have single pennies. So like, stop that. I'm not saying go out and like, start just blowing your money, but don't treat everything with a scarcity mindset, because it'll just be scarce. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. Just, it's abundant. Like, money's there in the universe and it will come to you. Like I said at the beginning of the show, when you are following your heart and doing what you love, the money will follow. But counting every single penny is not really going to be the thing that like saves you money. Sorry, it's just not. Thank you guys so much for listening tonight to my updates and all the craziness that's happening in my life. I'm always glad to share more or answer more questions. So if you have any more questions or want to reach out, please do so at Tennesha Wood on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.